Good evening. Welcome to 30 Letters in 30 Days class, or letter number 11. It's actually our 10th class because Thursday night's class is a double class. We have 2 letters. So this is our 10th episode and our 11th letter. It is Tuesday night, Chof Beis, Oyer LeChof Beis Adar, and I want to wish my wife a happy anniversary. Before we get into tonight's letter, somebody just writes on the chat, I'm Muslim and I love your videos. Nice to meet you. That's fantastic. I didn't know how wide the appeal was. Fantastic. I'm happy that you're here. Okay. Before we get into tonight's letter, I wanted to mention something. So we had this wonderful thing yesterday where we were able to follow up regarding some more information about a previous letter. I think letter number 9, the one that I did in West Bloomfield, Michigan, was the letter that Rebbe wrote to the mother who was concerned about her children being finicky eaters. And so then the next day, I got more information from the family that Rebbe wrote that letter to. And I spoke about it last night when we did letter number 10. So then today, you're following this whole soap opera. So today I got more follow-up where one of the family members said, wow, you did such a great job describing the situation. It sounds like you grew up in our house. Well, thank you. I would like to think that I'm intuitive that way. So I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to make up some more stuff that may actually happen to be true. If you remember letter number 9, where the mother wrote to the Rebbe and said that one of their children is, especially one of their children, is a finicky eater, and that maybe they should compromise their kashrus standards. Not that they would, God forbid, do anything that was not kosher, but, you know, there are levels in how meticulous one is in observing kashrus. So it was something that for them would have been a departure from their regular, extremely high standards. And so the mother wrote to the Rebbe and asked if we should do that. And the Rebbe said, no, don't do that. The kashrus of the food is incredibly important, has a influence in your children's character and the way that their character forms for the rest of their lives. So definitely don't make compromises in that area. So I want to add something that I made up today. And I was driving back from the oil today, and I was thinking about that letter, and I was thinking about how lucky men are to have wives. Maybe I was thinking about that because tonight's my wedding anniversary, as I mentioned earlier. And I'll tell you why men are lucky to have wives. Because I don't think a man would have written that letter. We mentioned that the father in that story was Rebbe Heschel Zeitlin, a sheichet, a ritual slaughterer. I don't think he would have written that letter. I think he would have been self-conscious. Why am I bothering the Rebbe to ask for parenting tips? I don't think he would have written that letter. But a mother, a mother writes such a letter. And so his Rebbitzin, Tzalange Yorin, Rivka, wrote that letter. And I'm sure he was relieved. I'm sure he was so relieved. I would never bother the Rebbe about that. But thank God I have a wife who is enough of a crazy chassid that she's going to bother the Rebbe about it. And we're going to get an answer. And they did get an answer. And the wife was obviously right that it was important enough of an issue to bother the Rebbe about, because the Rebbe wrote a whole long answer. So there you see, she was right. Men would never bother the Rebbe about that. But women know that the Rebbe is available, and so Baruch Hashem for that. And we should be more like women, and we should know that the Rebbe is available. And stop being so self-conscious. Stop holding yourself back from the access that we have. That's all I'll say about that. If we had a longer format, I could verbring all night on that topic alone. But I'm going to go into tonight's letter. Baruch Hashem, Chof Tevis, Tafshin Yud Tes, Brooklyn, Shalom Uvracha. by the grace of God, the 20th day of the month of Tevis, 5719, Brooklyn. Greetings and blessings that I was writing to a man. Okay, do you know anything else about this man? Yes, he's Jewish. Yeah, he's a Jewish man. He's young. He's a young Jewish man. He's in yeshiva. He's unhappy with yeshiva. He's newly observant. How do I know this? I can feel it by touching the page. No, I'm joking. I read the letter. And I don't know much more. I couldn't figure out much more. But we're talking about someone who's newly observant, not just somebody who's new to Chabad, a Zugekumener, like we used to use that term more often. They don't use that term anymore, but there's nothing wrong with it, by the way. I think it's more politically correct than other terms that are used. At any rate, but not just someone who's new to Chabad, but someone who is new to observance in general, and is learning now in a Chabad yeshiva. I don't know if it was a what we call Baal Tshuva yeshiva. Maybe they should start calling it a Tzugekumener yeshiva. I don't know if it was a Baal Tshuva yeshiva. I don't think it was, but I can't tell from the letter. It could just be somebody, they used to be more into mainstreaming. Now that's the term in education, mainstreaming. Or if it was a special yeshiva program made for young men of such a background, I'm not sure. I'm not going to guess. But at any rate, young man, new to observance, in yeshiva, in a Chabad yeshiva, and he has some complaints, and he writes to the Rebbe about his complaints. What kind of a bacher thinks the Lubavitcher Rebbe has time to hear his complaints about yeshiva? Well, I'll tell you. This bacher, and he was right, because the Rebbe wrote him a whole long answer, and in the letter, the Rebbe actually apologizes for not writing an even longer answer. So, again, the women who write to the Rebbe about their children's finicky eating, and the bacher who write to the Rebbe about complaints about the yeshiva, and everyone who's writing to the Rebbe, keep it up. Don't stop. Okay. In answer to his letter from the fast of the 10th, not the 10th fast, but the fast of the 10th. That means the fast of the 10th day of Tevis. By the way, I met my wife on Asara B'Tevis. That's trivia for you. Yes. You know where I met my wife? On the 10th of Tevis. It was a Motzei Shabbos, Tavshin Samach, in... what's it called? 7 Balfour Place, in the Rapp's apartment. That's right. That's where I met her. Okay. Hashgacha Pratis, you see that? And then you're thinking, hold on, he met his wife Asara B'Tevis, and his anniversary is Chaf Beis Adar, and how long did they know each other before they were married? Yeah, okay, you can figure out whatever you want to figure out. So the Rebbe says, in answer to your letter that was written on the 10th day of Tevis, the fast of the 10th day of Tevis, may it be transformed into a day of gladness. That's how the Rambam says at the end of the laws of fasting. He says these fasts are all going to be not just canceled, but they're going to be transformed, and they're going to become days of, here, I got a memeable quote for you, from fast to feast. There you go. Run with it. At any rate, in your letter, you write that you've been for a few months in Teimchet Tamimim in fill in the blank, whatever city it was. I'm guessing the guy's Israeli. You know why I'm guessing that? Because he's newly observant and the Rebbe is writing to him in Hebrew. So I'm guessing he's Israeli. So you've been in Teimchet Tamimim in the town of, the Rebbe doesn't say where. Fact checkers, go find out for me in 1959 how many Teimchet Tamimim branches there were. Well, I suppose he could have been learning outside of Eretz Yisrael. Yeah. I don't know. Get me a list. Find out. Let's crack the code here. Or maybe the person who got this letter will come forward and let us know. V'yeshnam protim she'enai svar rotzein me'amatzav sham And there are issues, there are details there that are not to his liking over there. And he enumerates, he details what those issues are. Okay. So the Rebbe says, first I want to apologize. Why do I want to apologize? Basically, because the Rebbe is about to tell him that your whole letter was written by the Yetzer Hara. Basically, that's what the Rebbe says. So first I want to apologize in advance. And I want to mention first what our sages say, even though the Yetzer Hara is called a fool, right? Where is that in Kehelis? The old foolish king. Although the Yetzer Hara is called a fool, he is clever in his craft. How to trick the Jewish person. Since people don't have the same mind as each other, right? Different people have different ways of looking at life. Everyone's brain is wired a little bit differently. Therefore, it's understood that everyone's Yetzer Hara takes a different approach. Hamasima, fitting the specific personality of that person. So everyone's brain works a little bit differently, and everyone's Yetzer Hara works a little bit differently. How you like that? Makes it so much more difficult. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about you, the Rebbe says. We're talking about now a young man who made a decision on his own. The Rebbe emphasizes that. He made a decision on his own. In other words, nobody talked him into this. Nobody forced him to go. Not like most kids in Yeshiva, only there because their parents sent them. No. You're a young man who chose this way of life. You put yourself in Yeshiva. So your Yetzer Hara is checking you out, and he's thinking, what's the psychology of a guy who chose on his own to put himself in Yeshiva and become religious? Because you think because you became religious, the Yetzer Hara is going to stop bothering you? The Yetzer Hara is going to start bothering you. I heard a great story from a friend of mine. I heard this from, whatever, it doesn't, I'll leave out the name. A friend of mine who learned in Montreal, and he said there was a guy who used to hang around Yeshiva who was not Jewish, but he was studying to become Jewish. And eventually, I don't know how long he hung around Yeshiva, but the Bachram knew the guy. Because he was there often. And then finally, after his Gerus, after he converted according to halacha, he came out of the mikveh. And so sometime later, he was hanging out in Yeshiva again. And he says, Bachram, I want you to know that Torah is absolute emes. Torah is 100% true. How do I know that Torah is absolute? Like this whole thing, Yiddishkeit, is real. It is undisputable that this is all real. How do I know? What's my proof? The guy who just converted says to the Bachram, how do I know that Yiddishkeit is real? Because I finished my conversion, and now, for the first time, I have sveikus and amunah. I have doubts about faith. You hear that? When he wasn't Jewish. So whatever, it was easy, accepted, yeah. Torah is true, Yiddishkeit is true. Then after he actually took on the yoke of mitzvahs, he actually became obligated. At that point, then the Yetzer Hara came up and started poking holes. Maybe it's not so incumbent upon you, whatever. So, yeah, you became religious and you think the Yetzer Hara is not going to bother you anymore? No, this is when the real fun starts. So the Yetzer Hara is sizing you up, and he's like, okay, here you are. You're a young man. What's your profile? Who put himself in yeshiva. Lamreis kamek shuyim, the Rebbe says, in spite of many difficulties, it wasn't so easy. Wasn't easy. You know, I don't know what those difficulties are, but many times when somebody becomes observant, not only his family doesn't support it, but the family is very upset and they object. And maybe the Rebbe is referring to something like that. Sheyilmod Torah b'yiras shamayim v'yala b'kiyum mitzvahs uviskashrus l'chol inyonei haTorah u'mitzvayseha. And what do? You made a decision that you're going to learn Torah with fear of heaven, and you're going to increase your mitzvah observance, and you're going to develop your connection to all matters of Torah and mitzvahs. The Rebbe is describing what the Yetzer Hara is seeing. The Yetzer Hara gets a profile on the guy. The head office of the Yetzer Hara tells his Yetzer Hara, this guy's Yetzer Hara, okay, we have the information. We just want to update you. Here are the files. This young man, he, in spite of many difficulties, made a decision to commit to an observant lifestyle and to put himself into yeshiva. And not only he made a decision, v'gam hischel l'kayim haklatos hezu. He started actually carrying it out. There's a difference, there's a difference. They say 3 frogs are sitting on a log. 2 decided to jump into the water. How many frogs were left on the log? 3. 2 decided to jump into the water. They decided. They didn't jump into the water. They decided to jump in the water. They didn't actually do it. So the Rebbe says, you made a hachlata, and you actually began to implement the hachlata. You made a resolution, you're actually fulfilling it. You're in yeshiva. Al yedei knisasi lemechitza, you put yourself into the environment. Shisham hi hadgasha al yinyani yiras shamayim. And we know where he is. He's in Teim Chetimim. He's in a Chabad yeshiva. You put yourself in a place where they emphasize matters of fear of heaven. V'limud pnimius haTorah, where they emphasize also learning chassidus. Pnimius haTorah means the inner dimension of the Torah. So the Yetzer Hara is looking at you and all those facts. Hine moving shebeim yigashay love betaina. The Yetzer Hara knows if he approaches you with the argument, sheyachzer may hachlatase, that you should go back on your resolution, v'yashuv chas v'shalom liminhage hakaidim, and return to your previous lifestyle. But the Yetzer Hara knows that if that's what he comes, he says to him, yeah, let's run out of yeshiva and let's go back to non-observance. Bevadai shalai yishma lepetuyai. Certainly, you're not going to listen to that enticement. You're going to say, Yetzer Hara, you're being so obvious. You're trying to ruin my life. Get out of here. But the Yetzer Hara, when he ruins your life, God forbid, he's not going to be obvious that he's ruining your life. No. When the Yetzer Hara comes to ruin your life, God forbid, he makes you think he's there to improve it. Let's go further. V'lochin, therefore, menasa be'eifin, so the Yetzer Hara tries in the following way. Shetikvasa shel Yetzer Hara she'ulai yispata al yedei zeh basbirei. He thinks maybe he's going to entice you by explaining the following. Shelei zeh hamokim v'loi zeh ha'oifen. This is not the place, and this is not the way, al yodei, in which yagia lamatarase, to reach your goal. In other words, yes, young man, you want to be a good, God-fearing, observant Jew. What a wonderful goal. The Yetzer Hara is saying this to him. That's a great goal. You should go for that. I just don't think this is the place that's going to enable you to actually reach that goal. Now, obviously, the Yetzer Hara is going to start to look for reasons that make sense according to logic. The Yetzer Hara is not going to just come with a half-baked plan and say, this is not the place for you. He's going to give you proofs why this is not the place for you. Now, he's telling you he wants you to find a better yeshiva. The truth is he wants you to become a yeshiva hopper. Yeah, I'm speaking to you. Yeah, there's somebody out there listening right now who's yeshiva hopping right now. Stop it, okay? How do I know? Because statistically, first of all, other than the guy at the beginning in the chat who said that he's Muslim. But I think there's a certain profile of people who watch this kind of class. And I'm thinking statistically, among the people who watch this class, there's at least one yeshiva hopper out there. And I want you to stop doing that and just listen to the rest of this letter. At any rate, so the Yetzer Hara is going to come up to him, and he's going to tell him, you got to change yeshivas. And he's not just going to tell you you got to change yeshivas. He's going to give you proofs why this yeshiva is no good. Proofs, like the Rebbe says, that yesh lahem achiza b'seichel. You know what that means? Yesh lahem achiza b'seichel? Like, they actually have some logic to them. He's not just going to make up totally far-fetched things that are ridiculous, because then you're going to see through his intentions. He's going to say to you things that yesh lahem achiza b'seichel that actually sound like they make sense, and to some degree, maybe there is some partial logic. In other words, he's going to rationalize. You know what it means to rationalize? Rational lies. That's right. To rationalize is to listen to the rational lies. They are lies. Sheker gamor. But yesh lahem achiza b'seichel. There's a basis in logic, so it sounds compelling. Okay. V'afsher sheyimtza ma. And maybe you're going to say, maybe taka, yeah. There's something to it. Kevin she'ein shleimus ba'ilam, because after all, nothing's perfect in the world. It's true. There's nothing perfect in the world. So if the Yetzer Hara needs to come bring you proofs that there's something wrong with anything, you could find something wrong with anything. Everything in the world is mixed with good and bad. I love this part, because I'm not even sure why it's essential to the letter. That's what makes me love it more, because I could have understood the letter without this section. Therefore, the fact that the Rebbe took time to include this section tells me this is a really important idea, and I don't fully understand it yet, but I hope with time, God willing, to understand this idea fully. The Rebbe says everything has good and bad, but when we say that everything has good and bad, obviously we don't mean to the same proportion. There's a spectrum, a very wide spectrum. For instance, on the one extreme, the good extreme, the ra is minuscule, trace amounts, tiny amounts. It's like it's not there. It's 1,000th or a 10,000th. What is that? 0.0001%. That's 1,000th. 0.00001% would be a 10,000th, I think. That's pretty minuscule. Yeah. I think the USDA allows there to be more. I'm not going to say what it is, but bad stuff in your ketchup than that amount. It's a very tiny amount. You wouldn't even know it's there. Ubato legamri, therefore, it is completely nullified. At least effectively speaking. Va'ad lakotza sheni, but then you have the other extreme side of the spectrum. Rachmana litzlan, God forbid, may the merciful protect us. Where the Rebbe doesn't even spell it out, but where the proportion of good to bad is that there's a preponderance of bad and only trace amounts of good. So, but the point is, everything is mixed with good and bad in this world, so you could always find bad. And then just parenthetically, the Rebbe mentions that there are all different proportions to which that is true, or to which that holds true in various different cases. Okay. The more the Yetzer Hara is afraid that his guy that he works on is going to choose a good path, and that he's in a place right now that is threatening to the Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara is afraid that the guy is about ready to act on his good resolutions. So what happens? Conversely, the Yetzer Hara is going to step up his enticement of the person. Like it's explained in the book of Tanya. Which chapter? Who's going to tell me? It's in the Tanya map behind me if you can read it. I know this is not in 4K, so there's no way you could actually read the Tanya map behind me. But what chapter? Who's going to say it? Where does it say? I'm going to read it more. That the stray thoughts and the enticement of the Yetzer Hara, misgabrim, they get worse. During davening than during the rest of the day. How come punkt? Well, I'm trying to daven Shemini Esrei. That's when the Yetzer Hara starts attacking my mind. Yes, of course, because that's the time that threatens him the most. Tefillah is a time of transformation. Davening is threatening to the Yetzer Hara, so that's when he's going to give you the most grief. What chapter of Tanya is it? Somebody write it in the chat. Somebody text me. Somebody email me. Should I say it? Chapter 28. Let me just look here on the... Let me see. Chapter 28. Ignoring sinful thoughts while engaged in divine service. If plagued by foreign thoughts while engaged in divine service... I wrote this 20 years ago. I used to use words like divine service. Now I would just write while praying, because that's what it means. Ignore them. It is precisely because the godly soul is now active that the animal soul resists. Chapter 28. There you go. Oh. Hey, like that. All right, continue. Now, the Rebbe says, it is possible that the claims, the arguments that you're making, that you write about, are true, at least partially true. In fact, the Rebbe said as much earlier in the letter. The Rebbe said the Yetzer Hara indeed is going to come to you with arguments that have some basis in logic, even though it's not genuine in any desire to come to a logical conclusion. It's obviously has an agenda to warp things, but its initial arguments will have some semblance of logic, which is precisely what makes it so insidious. That's what the Rebbe is explaining here. Okay. And that is to say, specifically in your case, that there may be some validity to your claims. That the young men that you are paired up with for study partners, in Yeshiva, most of the learning is bechavrusa. You learn with study partners. So basically, this bacher wrote to the Rebbe and said, I just became observant. Why did somebody write thank you in the chat just now? What did I do? Why did you write thank you? It says Zelig Shemtov was one of my researchers, but they didn't give me any research tonight. They told me the letter's understood on its own. So I can't even credit my research department for telling me chapter 28. But I do want to credit my research department because there are some letters where without the information they provide me with before the class, I wouldn't really be able to give you the share that I'm giving. And is that the same Zelig Shemtov? I'm assuming so. So, yeah. But why did you write thank you? Just to distract me? And now somebody's writing in the chat, Tanya. Yeah, I know Tanya. The Rebbe said Tanya. But I asked you which chapter of Tanya. And we said it already. It was 28. Oh, people aren't all watching live. They tuned in at different parts. So they could be like 5 minutes behind. Just figured it out. Okay. Great. So basically this bacher writes to the Rebbe, this newly observant bacher, and he's like, listen, my chavrusas, they're no good. and I got to leave. I got to get out of here. So the Rebbe says, you know what? It may be true that the young man that you are study partners with, they are actually lacking in some of the points that you brought up about them. I don't know what points the guy brought up, but he said this guy is less than desirable in this way. This guy's less than desirable in that way. And Chaim Rothstein says, good evening, Rabbi. Thank you. Chaim Rothstein, my neighbor from Far Rockaway. I usually see him at the Far Rockaway mikveh, which is my mikveh of choice on Erev Shabbos, for many reasons. Okay. See what you miss when you don't watch the live? Because after the live, you don't see all these chats. These chats are only on during the live. Okay. So it could be true that there are these issues regarding your chavrusas. The Rebbe says, let me give you a helpful analogy. I'm going to give you a mashal, an analogy. A merchant who is making a living materially. He's got a business. He's trying to make a living. People come to buy his schreira, his merchandise, right? He's in business to sell stuff, all right? So some people come, prospective buyers who may be interested in making a deal with him. He tries to find in his potential buyers those qualities in them that may assist making a sale. You know, sales is about closing. It's always ABC, always be closing. So you have to look at your potential buyer. Potential buyers are complex. They have all types of stuff going on. And you need to be the one who gets them to the place where they're ready to make that purchase. So you don't look at them and try to find reasons why this can't be a deal, right? You want to sell stuff, right? You're a seicher. You're trying to sell stuff. So you're looking for aspects of their character or their situation that may help you actually make the sale. And then you're going to actually make a profit, a nice profit. You're not going to emphasize the qualities of the potential buyers that would be in contradiction to the sale. I want to mention something, by the way. The translations. The translations of these letters are beautiful. And Sichas in English provides them for us, and they do a wonderful job. And I want to thank Rebbe Shmuley Avtzon and Sichas in English for providing the translations. I also want to say that generally I don't look at the English while I'm reading because it kind of hinders my flow. So I'm sitting here struggling how to translate this sentence. I could just look inside and read the English, but then it's not as easy for me to flow in and out of the Hebrew and the English. But I do want to mention that everyone has their PDFs. I'm hoping, I'm assuming. And if you don't have your PDF, go to 30letters30days.com and download your PDF and print your PDF, and then you'll have this wonderful English. And they really are wonderful English translations. And again, we thank Sichas in English for their commitment to this project. Okay. And people were asking, are there going to be physical booklets like last year? I don't know. Maybe. If you guys are good, maybe. We're working on it. We'll see what happens. But for now, 30letters30days.com. You get your PDF, you download it, you print it. Okay. Yes, it's been 30 minutes, over 30 minutes since I started. Yes, we're going over time. Yes, it's a long letter. It's a really long letter. And again, thank you to Sichas in English for the extra work that it entailed to get this letter ready for us tonight, because it was a long letter. Yeah, we're going to go a little over time. So if you're a merchant, come on, you're not going to look for reasons why this buyer is not a good buyer. You're going to look for reasons why he is a good buyer, and you're going to close the deal. Va'al derech zeh hu gam benimshel, b'hanimshel, or banimshel. Same thing in in your case. Shebehischaber ha'odem im chaveroi. One guy becomes connected to another guy. They become involved. Olav lahadgish, so he should emphasize ulahavlit, and to emphasize, to make it boilet, to make it stick out. Ulishtadu lahagbir, and he should try to strengthen. Let me see the beautiful English that I have right here, because I'm saying emphasize and make stick out and strengthen, but let's see what they wrote here. He should emphasize and ensure to focus on the good aspects of his friend. Yeah, excellent. The good aspects of his friend, not the other aspects. Right? So if you're trying to sell stuff, look for reasons why this buyer is a good buyer and close the deal. If you meet somebody and you become connected to them, look for reasons why you could gain something from this relationship. Don't look for reasons why you don't want the relationship. Because like the Rebbe said, there's good and bad in everything and in everyone. But come on, you use some sense. I love the Seicher analogy, because a Seicher could be a real perfectionist and be like, I don't want to sell to anyone who has any problems. I only want to sell to a very, very special clientele. Usually the guys who say that are guys who can't sell anyway, so then they justify it by saying, our product is for a very niche clientele, right? It's after the fact. They rationalize. But, right, no normal person in business is trying to find reasons why not to do business with potential buyers. And the same thing, if you meet somebody, there's something you can gain from them. There's some positive net gain that this relationship can yield. So let's look for that. The Rebbe says, I'm sure that your chavrusas have problems. Everyone has problems. But look for what you can gain from your relationship with them. B'tuchani, it is certain to me, that among the young men in the yeshiva, Sires Mayhem, that there are tens of them, literally tens of them, that do not have the problems that you wrote about. Okay, so I'm admitting that probably some of the guys that you wrote about and you say they have certain problems, yeah, they do have those problems. That's true. I also want to mention there's probably literally tens of guys in your yeshiva who do not have those problems, at least not those same problems. Even though they may have other issues that need improvement. Therefore, the sound counsel, the advice, lies lamed mikol adam, is to learn from everyone. That is what Chazal say, learn from everyone. Hatzada toiv shabai, learn from their good qualities. Uliskasha im hatzada toiv shabai, and connect to their good qualities. Not the opposite. In other words, every single person in that yeshiva has some quality that you can gain from, and therefore it would behoove you to have a relationship with them. And as for whatever qualities those individuals may have that are not positive qualities, so nobody's forcing you to accept upon yourself everything that everybody is offering. You can be discerning. You know what they say, take what you like and leave the rest. That's what the Rebbe is telling this guy. You're in yeshiva. There's a lot of people around you. They have a lot of good qualities. And yes, some qualities that need improvement. I know that. So take the good stuff. Focus on that. Hamur mekola amar, that which arises from all of the above, meaning to say the conclusion here. What's the final analysis? Sha'alav lilmaid basmada ushkida. I love it. The Rebbe is so predictable. What else would the Rebbe tell a bacher is the bottom line in his life? The bottom line, you know what I think you need to do? What do you think he's going to tell a bacher? And the bottom line in your life is, you need to make more money. The Rebbe says to a bacher, the bottom line in life is, I think you need to learn b'shkita v'asmada. B'shkita means the diligence. The asmada means the constancy of it. Learn with focus, learn consistently. That's the bottom line. I think that's what you need to do. Uli hista'eya ma'avrechem shebesvivase. And you should avail yourself of the whatever positive stuff you can be helped from the bacharim around you. B'teim chetmimim, in the yeshiva, teim chetmimim. Shehem masmidim bilimud, for instance, there are bacharim who are masmidim bilimud. What's a masmid? A masmid is from the word tamid. Masmid is someone who's constantly learning. Af she'ein ma'irichim betfilah, even though they don't necessarily pray at length. And what can you get from these guys? Bahanageya lasmadose. You can gain from this guy's constant studying, right? So you see a guy or see some guys who are masmidim, but they don't daven so much. Okay, great. So those guys, I want you to pick up from them the fact that they are masmidim, and don't pick up from them their davening, because their davening needs improvement. And conversely, those guys around you who do pray at length and they pray with a lot of feeling, although they are not such diligent Torah studiers, from them you pick up you pick up their style of prayer. Take from each person the quality in them in which they excel. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And our sages have already guaranteed, if you toil, if you work, you will succeed. May it be God's will. That my above lines, that are few, relatively few, be'erech chashivas ha'inyan, compared to the importance of the matter. I just want to stop on that phrase. Remember how I started tonight and I said, good for that wife who actually wrote to the Rebbe, and I'm sure, and I know her husband was grateful that she wrote to the Rebbe to ask for guidance about the children. Remember I mentioned that at the beginning of tonight's share. The Rebbe has time for us. The Rebbe wants to hear what's going on. Yes, there's no problem too small. Yes. Okay. So here we see it again. A bacher is writing to the leader of world Jewry to complain that he doesn't like his chavrusas. Now, I'm going to say this grub. Some Baal Tshuva bacher wants to bother the Lubavitcher Rebbe that he doesn't like his chavrusas? You think the Lubavitcher Rebbe doesn't have better what to do than to listen to such problems? Okay, let's ask the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says to this guy that what I wrote to you, we called it a long letter. The Rebbe says, this letter that I wrote to you is very small. It's just a few lines relative to the importance of the matter. Do you understand this? The Rebbe is writing to some young man and saying, this is important to me. I wish I could write you more. You deserve more. The importance of what's going on in your life is worthy of an even more detailed response from me. I'm unable to give you as much as you're worthy of, but I want you to know that you deserve to have even more of a response than I'm giving you. And just stop and soak that in for a second. I didn't want anyone to miss that detail. Okay, so I hope that these few lines, which are relatively few compared to the importance of the issue, tifalna pulosan, I hope they have their effect. And how will they have their effect? You're just going to read the letter and it has its effect? No. I already told you how Igros works. The Rebbe wanted us to study the Igros. That's what we do here in 30 Letters, 30 Days. That's what we're trying to do, with Hashem's help. The Rebbe says, I wrote to you these few lines, but here's how they're going to actually have an effect. Al yedei shis beinein bohen, that you're going to meditate on these few lines I wrote you. V'yarchivon ba'avonose v'salgosehu, and it's going to enlarge, or you're going to enlarge in your meditation on these lines will enlarge in your understanding of these lines. You have to actually think about this. The Igros are meant to be studied deeply. So the Rebbe says, please deeply study my answer, deeply meditate upon my answer. And it is going to help you to reach a clarity that you require. Because these few lines that I wrote you describe the situation accurately. And set aside any of the Kedusha and any of the spiritual power that an answer from the Rebbe certainly contains. Just think about what an absolute blessing it is to have somebody describe things accurately. That alone is such a gift. And certainly that you're going to use this out. You're going to understand what I'm trying to tell you, and you're going to be able to use it out. You're going to be able to find good use for this in yeshiva. B'meshech hazman lashpa'osei al acherim. After a while, I want to know who this guy is, because I bet you he became some big mashpia. That's what I'm guessing. The Rebbe says, after a while, you're going to use this out on how you influence others. Maybe not right away. The Rebbe says, b'meshech hazman. With the passage of time, this is going to affect how you affect others. Uschus harabim. I'm going to make something up, and maybe it's totally wrong. Schus harabim mesaitoi. The benefit of the many is going to help you. What do you think? What is the Rebbe saying here? Shais Talbot's making this up. I have no proof that this is an accurate way to read these words. The Rebbe says, basically, I'm helping you in your personal life. Okay? Now, please meditate on what I'm telling you. It's going to help you. And it's going to become clear to you. B'meshech hazman, in the passage of time, I don't know exactly when, but at some point, you are going to start, it's probably not a revolutionary event, it's going to be an evolutionary process where you start becoming a mashpia, and you're going to help others. So therefore, you think I'm emotional for other reasons. I want to explain to you that when you read clarity, and it is so clear, there's a certain profundity. Seriously, you think maybe this is triggering some type of purely emotional response. I'm telling you why I'm so moved by this. Because when you read something, seichel of such profundity, just the profundity alone is deeply moving. At least to me it is. Listen to the profundity of this statement. And I could be reading it wrong. You're going to internalize this message which I'm writing to you, which is to help you in your personal life. But eventually you're going to use that same thinking that I'm teaching you. You're going to use that same thinking to be helpful to others. And therefore, the schus harabim, the merit of helping so many people is going to help you to have clarity in your personal life. Now, let me ask you, did he help those people yet? He didn't help them yet. He didn't even help himself yet. Put your oxygen masks on first. He didn't even help himself. He's still confused. He still thinks he needs to be a yeshiva hopper. But the Rebbe is telling him, this clarity that I'm giving you, it's going to help you. Then you're going to use this same clarity. That's why I want to know who this guy grew up to be. Probably became a mashpia in yeshiva. And you're going to use that clarity to help others. And the schus of all that help that you're going to do for others is going to work backward in time. You didn't help others yet. That's happening in your future. But the schus that you're going to have in the future from all those people you helped is going to come back in time and help you now to have clarity right now. That's not beautiful enough? That concept is not beautiful enough to move you to tears? Okay, to each his own. I guess we have different preferences. All right. So this Schos HaRabim is going to help you l'sgaber al ha'kuvim hamadumim. It's going to help you overcome your imaginary obstacles, perceived obstacles. It's going to help you to succeed in studying while you're in yeshiva. Yedua hasicha mikvei kedushas admor Rashab nishmas Eiden. It's known the sicha of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe. Nidpos b'Sefer Torah Shalom, which is printed in Sefer Torah Shalom. Torah Shalom is a sefer of sichas of the Rebbe Rashab. There are many, many, many svarim of the Rebbe Rashab's Maimarim, but the sichas are in a sefer called Torah Shalom. Shemi shetafkidei liyes mashpia. The Rebbe is really pushing this mashpia idea. There's BT Bacher, and the Rebbe sees him as a mashpia. The Rebbe knows how to pick him. That's for sure. Okay, invest, buy low, sell high. That's what I'm telling you. Like his uncle told him. So it's known from Torah Shalom that somebody whose job is to be a mashpia, and he wants to succeed in this job, he first has to be a makabel, a recipient in all matters. Ubesignin Chazal, or in the language of our sages, lies kli rekon, to be an empty vessel, mikol pnies tzaddies, from all ulterior motives, umikol bibule seichel atzme bekabalase enyonim, and he has to be clear of any of his own thoughts that will confuse him from being a recipient. And through that, he will become a mashpia, an influencer over the course of time. It's an incredible glimpse into the process. I don't know that the Rebbe had to share that with this young man. The Rebbe could have concluded the letter a little bit earlier. And after the Rebbe already proved that the Yetzer Hara is the one who's engineering this yeshiva hopping idea. And the Rebbe proved that this is the way the Yetzer Hara is going to ruin his life. Not by telling him to go back and be irreligious again, but by telling him to find fault in his chavrusas and try to change yeshivas. That could have been enough. But the Rebbe's sharing, I hold myself back from saying words because I don't want to be judged. But, is it okay if I say a little nevuah, a little ruach HaKodesh? And, that doesn't have to be shared, obviously. But the Rebbe is saying, it's not just about you. It's about your future. And you are going to be the mashpia. But in order for that to happen, I gotta tell you, there's gonna be a time you're gonna be the mashpia. But in order for that to happen, you need to go through a necessary prerequisite phase where you completely completely clear yourself out. You empty yourself out to be a true recipient. So will you just please submit yourself to the authority of the yeshiva? Just show up and learn. Just try to get what's good from everyone around you. Absorb, absorb, absorb. And there's going to come a point where you're going to be the leader. And again, I don't know if the Rebbe had to share that with him, but the Rebbe did. We're almost done. There's a comment here somebody wrote, which is very kind, and I'm not going to read it, but I read it. I'm not going to read it out loud, but thank you very much for your comment. And it's very meaningful to me. V'eid lahaisef. I want to add another thing. Rebbe says, another thing I want to add. Asher bevade yedua lekama mechaverov. Al dvar hachlotose l'shanis darke beikar. It's for sure that some of your friends, the Rebbe was talking about his old friends, his old group, when he wasn't observant. They know about your hachlot, about your resolution to change your ways. And they know you've actually started already. You think it's a secret that you're in yeshiva? I mean, this is before social media. First, could think he's off the grid. But basically, the Rebbe is saying, your buddies from when you were not religious, they know, at least some of them know, that you've made a commitment to this new way of life. V'chol nesiga la'ocher. Therefore, any regression on your part, any turning back on your part, titein lahem wa'achiz va'amokim, you are giving them place, lavay elov berayas shaynis mashunes, to come to you with various different proofs. Shalait tzedek hu b'achlatasa b'achlatach v'chulu, that you are not correct in your resolution. In other words, they are going to weaponize your lack of clarity and come to you and tell you that you are wrong from the beginning, that your whole desire to become religious and to seek that way of life and to learn Torah, the whole thing was off. Sharei kechol b'nei Yisrael. Now, I love this observation. Every Jew, bevada esher nefesh olakish lahem miyasartam lama loy hechlitu kachlatosei hu. Their nefesh elokis is complaining to them, admonishing them. Why didn't they make the same resolution as you? In other words, that I'm just saying, let me say it in plain English. Your non-Jewish friends are probably really proud of you. Oh, our buddy is going to become a rabbi. That's cool, Rabbi. Your Jewish friends, they're very nervous about this. What's he doing? You know why? Because your Jewish friends, they also have a godly soul that wants them to do exactly what you're doing. And it's actually crying out to them. They can't hear its voice because the godly soul is buried underneath the sound of the animal soul and the body. But your old friends are feeling guilty, maybe not even consciously so. Maybe completely unconsciously they are feeling guilty that they didn't do what you did. And how are they going to deal with their guilt, albeit perhaps unconscious guilt? They're going to prove to you that you made a mistake. And if they can prove to you that you made a mistake, then they don't have to imitate and copy your mistake. After all, you learn from other people's mistakes. A wise person does. So We're learning the fact, our friend, what a fool. He tried to become frum, and it didn't work. So that's why I'm going to make sure that I don't do the same thing. That's what your friends are rationalizing. Rationalize. Yes. Yeah, so they are going to use this to weaponize against your decision, l'shuv l'derech chaim amitim, that you made, that you're going to return to a life of true life. Hiderech Torah seino Torah chaim, which a life of true life means a life of our Torah, which is the Torah of life. V'ki mitzvei lehen nemar v'chai b'hem. And a true life is the life of performing mitzvahs, regarding which the Torah says, and you shall live with them. You should live with the mitzvahs. V'chai b'hem. Ukidei lahatzdik ha'achlota shalahem. So in order for them to rationalize their own lack of making the same commitment that you did, harei aderech hachi kalahi, the easiest way. There are other ways as well, but the easiest way for them lahatul daifi b'achlotase shaloi lachzer l'derech haveseinu la'atera v'hamseira is just to criticize, to poke holes in your resolution to return to the ways of our fathers and to the Torah and its tradition. Bivracha l'besuras tevis b'chol ha'amur, with blessings for good news in all of that which is mentioned. And that's our letter tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night.